goals for the Penguins defenseman on his last 5 shots on target against Varley. And the most recent of those was the overtime winner on this Saturday night at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. I'm Matt Gajtka along with Hunter Hodies. This is Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. The Penguins have won for the 6th time in their past 8 games, and for the 6th time in 9 games since they had those 2 matchups against the Devils wiped out at the very start of the month. So some improving results, and another similar story for this season. That is now 7 wins beyond regulation for the Penguins. 7 out of their 11 have come past 60 minutes. If it feels like every game is close, that's because every game really has been close. A couple of multi-goal spreads in recent games, Hunter, but that's really just been because of empty netters. Honestly, there's been a couple of games, maybe 1 or 2, that have been decided with 5 minutes left. So if you were missing hockey over the course of the long off season, then, we've certainly made up for that excitement, that lack of excitement with all this drama that we've had. And I think you could really notice late in that third period, couldn't you? Both teams figured out, oh my goodness, there's a lot on the line right now, even though we're only in late February. But every game against a divisional opponent, and the next goal was going to start to tilt things in that East Division, which is so tight right now.
Yeah, I think there's a comment here, a good win with some cringe moments. I think that's basically the theme of every Penguin game this season. You had the classic start with the Penguins. They started out playing like crap. They had a 2 multi-goal deficit. They tied the game in 26 seconds, give up another goal, tie the game, and then win the game in overtime. It's like that's been like that every time this season in all their wins. It sucks, though, that these are 3-point games. Last week, they got those 4 points against the Islanders in regulation. I wanted to see that again. Honestly, Matt, I did not know that they play again tomorrow. I thought it was on Monday. So again, tomorrow, another huge game as well. But tonight, this team has a lot of guts. I could use a different word, but I think guts, stones is the big thing.
You can say whatever you want, man. This is an FCC regulated. So.
Yeah. They have a lot of guts, stones, a lot of balls, I guess.
There you go.
They find a way to win all these games, and it's miraculous. And they probably didn't deserve to win this game. I was telling you beforehand. I tweeted out, Semyon Varlamov's controller disconnected on 3 of their goals, and I think that's why they won the game. That's basically all there is to it. The power play stunk again. They're reverting back to their old season ways where they can't even gain the zone. They can't win a puck battle along the boards, and they can't even get pucks to the net. It's just really – the special teams are a disaster. They allowed another power play goal against. I think the Islanders are now at the time they were 4 for 7 against the Penguins in the power play this year, if that sounds correct. That's embarrassing. But, Kris Letang, he gets his 4th goal of the season. All 4 of his goals, Matt, are against the Islanders. That's something that's funny. But, there's another comment here. I thought the third period was easily their best period of this game. Second period, they got caved in the whole time. First period, kind of back and forth until the Islanders got that late goal. The third period, you could see them really taking it to the Islanders. I thought they stood back a bit. I was ready to get out of my seat when Rust had that chance with 2 minutes left. I thought that was the winner right there. He never really misses those. But, they were able to find a way to win. And I think in overtime and shootouts now, Matt, they're 7-1, which is this was a team that struggled in that area, I think, just a year or 2 ago. But what a turnaround it's been for that. They are not where they are right now if they are not the best 3-on-3 team in the league.
Well, Hunter touched upon a bunch of those points we're going to get to here tonight. And Hunter joins us courtesy of the Locked On Penguins podcast, as well as Pittsburgh Hockey Now, where he chimes in alongside Dan Kingerski and Shelley Anderson. So keep an eye on his work on those 2 entities, those 2 spaces. And also, remember to chime in. We've already seen a couple of comments here on YouTube for tonight's episode of Pittsburgh Postgame. We're also streaming on Facebook on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now channel, and we're on Twitter too via Periscope, which I think is still viable for another couple of weeks. After that, it'll be a little bit different on Twitter, but we're all over the place. That's the takeaway for you there. So no excuse to miss out. And then after the fact on Pittsburgh Sports Live, the YouTube channel will have the archive version too. Jared McCann returns to the lineup, Hunter, tonight, and I think it's easy to forget about him sometimes because he's had such a hard time putting the puck in the net. Well, no such issue tonight as he caps off a 2-on-1 with Yevgeny Malkin early in the third period. So I don't know Jared McCann personally. I'm not sure what his psyche has been like over the past several months worth of playing time for him. He's had the injury, of course, this year. But going back to the end of last year, he just got into that drought, into a funk. And despite having what looks to be a really good release, a good shot, hasn't been able to put many pucks behind goaltenders. But he gets one here tonight in a key situation, in a key game. They all feel like key games, but this is a team that's right there with the Pens in the standings. So he was a major story coming into tonight, in addition to some shuffling of the defense pairs for Mike Sullivan and Todd Reardon. So we'll get to that in a moment. But Jared McCann, your impressions on his game? Easy to say it was a great game because he buried his best look of the night. But at the same time, I think he can add something to that Malkin line, hopefully, in the future here.
Yeah, I thought this was his best game of the season. It's funny enough how he comes back from injury and he has probably his best game of the year. It also helps that he is playing with Evgeny Malkin and Brian Rust. Those two, the duo, are, I think, one of the best duos, honestly, in the league for a second line. And he hasn't had the best numbers at wing this year. I think his possession numbers, his expected goal score, are a bit down. Usually they're a bit better at center. I still like him better at center, but I thought tonight had a lot more jump in his game. Was good in the offensive zone, really good in the defensive zone too. And, gets his third goal of the season off that brilliant 2-on-1. That pass from Malkin was awesome. He's also starting to heat up just a little bit. It's bit by bit with him. I know he looks a step slow, but that pass to Spring McCann there, brilliant feed. And then McCann buries it. I think it was blocker side on Varlamov. He like you did say, he adds something to this team. I think just a couple of years ago, Matt, wasn't he a 19-goal scorer? For combined with Pittsburgh and Florida. So, this is a good player, a potential 20-goal scorer, when he's fully healthy, but, he just hasn't, reached his full potential here yet. He's also been shuffled on and off so many lines and so many line mates. He hasn't had a chance to get comfortable. He'll probably be comfortable here a bit as Zucker is going to be out longer term. That injury looked like he's going to be out for at least a couple months. So I'm going to guess that he's going to have a lot of time up there, assuming he stays healthy. Just probably for the next couple months, unless he starts to struggle, they would move him down the lineup or they move to trade for a forward. But, I think this could be the start of something special with McCann playing with Malkin and Rust.
For the second straight game, the Malkin line was the Penguins' best line at 5-on-5. If you look at both shot attempts and also scoring chances, we're looking at about 60% for 2 consecutive games for the Malkin line, just at even strength we're talking about here, of course. Rust, Malkin, and McCann, the combination tonight. And for the second straight game as well, the Crosby line underwater in shot attempts and scoring chances too. So interesting trend there. It was a pretty lackluster game against the Caps that the Pens had a chance to win last time out. This time out, a different story. Like you said, it felt like they deserved a win, or at least a point out of this one, did the Penguins. The Islanders had the better of it for sure in the second period, but the third period really flipped. And with about 5 minutes to go, the Penguins played the vast majority of their shifts from that point forward in the Islanders zone and had a pretty good 3-on-3 overtime as well. Didn't give up a ton, honestly, which is tough to do in an overtime that almost went the entire distance. Now, you mentioned some of the good breaks there, so let's go to that spot next on this edition of Pittsburgh Postgame. Sidney Crosby scores a power play goal. Yay for the Penguins, but Semyon Varlamov fell over in his net, couldn't set his edges, and you don't see that too often. Give Sid credit. He just pumped the puck past him and didn't think twice about it. But that one wasn't exactly some product of a great setup or a prime plan on the power play or anything like that. It was just shoot when you see the goalie fall. And then the Letang winner as well. Honestly, that was a deflection off of a defender's stick. So you have the first goal and the fourth goal of tonight's game with some luck attached to it, but that's hockey. The Islanders got a good break on the Barzal goal with just a couple of minutes gone in the second period too. So I guess some from one side, some from the other side, but at the same time, it was another game where it could have gone either way. It wasn't like the Penguins dominated, and we've talked about the overtime results, 7-1. If they're 4-4, they're 3 points out of the playoffs right now. As of right now, they're tied for that fourth and final playoff spot. So with just average results in overtime or a shootout, they're closer to the Rangers than they are to the Islanders in the standings. I know it's tight. The Pens could actually climb within 1 of first place with a win tomorrow and some other results going their way. But there's really no room to be complacent here. And I keep coming back to special teams, Hunter. You said all there is to say about the power play, another tough night, but the penalty kill too. You brought that up as well. Both power play and penalty kill ranked 25th or worse. They've got to get this figured out. And I don't know if it's personnel or if it's execution or if it's game plan, But that's got to be their priority. I know that 5-on-5 is important, but these games are in the balance based on special teams, power play, and PK.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It looked like the PK was trying to turn a corner over before the Washington games. I mean, they held them to 2 for 19 against the Capitals going into that third period before they scored that goal. It looked like they were kind of trying to turn it, but then, they go back to revert to their old season ways. And then the power play, there was a glimmer of hope last week, Matt. They had a couple, I think, against the Islanders. And then, it just goes back south, just like it was earlier on in the season. And it's just like the same issues are right there. And I've been saying it for a long time on my podcast and on my Twitter. This team needs average special teams to literally be a playoff team, and they're not even getting that right now. The goaltending has actually figured itself out. That was one of the bigger questions too. Tristan Jarry, that's his 7th straight pretty good game for the Penguins. That has figured itself out for now. It could also turn south, but that's what check mark on that. But the special teams, just you said it best. They're not functioning well at all, whether it's the penalty kill or the power play. And they had 4 or 5 power plays tonight. I think that's the most amount of power plays that they've had against the Islanders in any game against them this season. The Islanders, I think, have only taken max 2 penalties against Pittsburgh in the previous 4 meetings. So you have to make them pay. You have to have these chances count. And they're just, like I said, I also between this too, Matt, it just almost looks like it's a momentum changer for the other team. No matter if it's the Islanders, Capitals, Flyers, Bruins, the other team gets the momentum when the Penguins go on the power play. And that's unacceptable with how much talent that they have, on that first advantage, with all the core players in place. And it's just, like you said, I don't know if it's personnel, I don't know if it needs a system revamp, but, they're not gaining the zone. They're not winning the puck battles along the boards, and they're not getting pucks to the net. And when they do gain the zone, they're just overpassing every time. So, and then for the penalty kill, sometimes they're not aggressive enough. They're the one that Brock Nelson scored tonight. There's 3 players right down there, right by Brock Nelson, and you're telling me you can't get a stick on that? There's 3 right within like an inch. So that was kind of frustrating to see as well.
On defense, there was a change made prior to this game. Marcus Pettersson playing with Kris Letang and Pierre-Olivier Joseph with Cody Ceci. And I was looking forward to seeing Joseph and Letang split up. I don't feel like that's a good combination, and I'll ask your opinion on that in just a moment. But I would like Joseph to be the offensive-minded player on his pairing. I think that he's in a better position there if he's playing with more of a stay-at-home type of a guy. Not that there are strictly stay-at-home guys in the mold of Rob Scuderi or anything anymore these days, but for the most part, I think you can count on Cody Ceci to be where he's supposed to be. We've seen that so far this year. And I think, you saw Joseph with a positive night in shot attempts with him on the ice this evening. And he had one pretty shaky turnover early on in the game. Actually could have made it 3-0 if the Islanders would have converted there. But we didn't see as many shaky moments from Joseph. I think he was more in a comfort zone tonight. Also, not playing against the Islanders' best players, not playing against the opponent's best players, I think is the best route for Joseph at the moment. I still want to see him in the lineup even when Dumoulin comes back. But if you're going to play him, I think this is more of an appropriate type of a role. 12 minutes at even strength for him compared to 18 for a Kris Letang in that top pairing with Pettersson. I think that is more reasonable, and I feel like this is a better setup. So what did you think about that when you saw the line chart come out before the game?
I liked it better. I've been advocating for Joseph to either sit on the bench or go down to the third pairing. I still am of the opinion I think he could use a break. I just don't want to burn through him too much, too quickly, just because he's played so many minutes already this year. And I don't think he expected to play on the top pairing. The coaches probably didn't expect him to play on the top pairing. This team has a very interesting decision to make once Brian Dumoulin comes back, whether it's next week, the week after, whenever. I know he started skating. Do you take Mike Matheson out? He's played better as of late, though in the defensive zone, it's a time watching Mike Matheson play defense, I think is the way to say it. I don't think you're going to take out Marcus Pettersson. I thought he played fine tonight. He wasn't flashy, but that's never the kind of player that he is, right? He's not going to wow you with a lot of good plays in the offensive zone, excuse me. He's more so good in the defensive zone. But even then tonight, I think it was the third goal off of Josh Bailey. I think he kind of lost his man there, and Bailey had a wide open look for some reason. Players like that should not get a wide open look at 5v5. I'm sorry. But Joseph, 12 minutes on the bottom pair, and you're getting the team's third and fourth lines. that's better for him right now. He's not getting as much minutes, not as much tough assignments, and playing with Cody Cece, who honestly is probably responsible for him right now in almost every defenseman that he plays with. I think that's the best course of action for the team. But though I do think once Dumoulin returns, I think he is going to be the odd man out. But it's probably going to be on a short leash for a couple other defensemen. Maybe such as Matheson. If he struggles again like he did earlier in the season, he could find his way out, and Joseph comes in. I don't envy Mike Sullivan with that situation, that's for sure. But I like the change of putting Pedersen up there with Letang. I think it was a long time coming, per se. And then I also liked, Matt, they finally scratched Mark Jankowski. That's probably 10 games too late with how he's played this year with his underlying numbers. I think his expected goals for percentage is below 40%. That's worst on the team. Last time I checked, I think Danny from Shot Reserving the Pens blog tweeted out all the Penguin players with their expected goals for percentage. They put Anthony Angelo in because, why the hell not at this point?
Yeah, Angelo actually got some power play time today, which I thought was interesting,
Yeah.
but neither here nor there right now. I think you're right about Joseph. He probably is going to sit at least a game or two once Dumoulin comes back. And you're probably right about the fact that he could maybe use a little breather and a look at the game from up top. It's cliche to say it, but I think that it couldn't hurt him to at least see what it looks like after he's experienced it at the NHL level on the ice. Maybe he can pick up something and be better the next time when he does get the opportunity. Let's go to some comments. Twitter's blowing up for us here tonight, so let's see what you have to say over there. And you can tweet at us at Matt Gajtka, MattGajtka, just like my name spelled there at the bottom of the little box that I'm in here. And Hunter Hodies, same deal. Just our names there on Twitter. Sugar Sandwiches, one of my favorite usernames on twitter.com. He says, man, when Kris Letang keeps it north-south and he keeps shooting, keeping it a simple game, that's when he's special. I think that you could say that for most of the Penguins, in fact. You could say that for any hockey player, really. It's such a fast game. It takes a really talented player to slow it down and go east-west. I think you see someone like Matt Barzal certainly has the skating ability to do that, and he almost functions better when he is changing speeds and giving you a little bit of that change up. But yeah, for Kris Letang there, the rush in overtime, Hunter, he could have easily have pulled up and tried to make a play, try to make a pass. Instead, he just shot it and it hit a stick. Really, it was probably a pretty good defensive play by the Islander. I didn't get the number there on that final goal, of course, but he got a puck on net. And I think sometimes you can surprise a defender in that situation by just putting your head down and shooting it. It worked out that time, and it's good to it up. It's not always going to work. A lot of times that's going to get blocked, but if you mix it up, if you keep the defender guessing, then you give yourself a better chance of succeeding no matter what you do. So I totally agree with that, and I feel like finally Letang is feeling some confidence here. That's the main point. He takes that shot on the setup from Kasperi Kapanen too on the tying goal in the second period. Just glad to see him putting some rubber on net. He gets in these modes where he just refuses to shoot it, and thankfully we're out of that now, it looks like.
Yeah, he's a lot better when he's actually shooting the puck on net. I mean, on the power play, you always see him just it looks like he's about to shoot it, but then just passes it. It's like that's a perfectly fine shooting lane right there and a scoring opportunity. Why do you keep passing it? But tonight, yeah, just these last 4 games, honestly, over the past week, Matt, I've just noticed a lot of differences in his game. He seems a lot more confident, playing offensively and defensively, just the way he was able to break it out of the defensive zone. And Barzal was on the ice there for, I think, like 3 minutes in that overtime. It looked like he looked gassed, and then they were able to get the puck up. And then, always the fun saying, always fire the puck on net. It happened there. I think it was Pelech that it went off of. I'm going to have to double check that though. And then Varlamov, he just looked stunned there because he didn't know where the puck went. And, it looked like it was going to go wide there for a second. And I thought the Islanders were going to have a 2-on-1, but, Letang had his instinct, to shoot it. Worked out great. That's his 4th goal of the season. All 4, of course, against the Islanders, like I said. And yeah, you said it too. He's playing with a lot more confidence right now. I can't wait to see how he plays when Brian Dumoulin comes back. He's always that steady, reliable defensive presence that he needs, especially in his own end. And I think that's going to take his game to a higher level this season as well. I still think he's really missing him right now. But over the last week, I've seen a lot of positive changes with Letang's game, and I'm really excited about it.
LGP on Twitter adds that, is it crazy to say I'm looking forward to Evan Rodriguez returning? Yes, we heard an Evan Rodriguez mentioned on the telecast tonight on AT&T Sportsnet. LGP continues with the fourth line. Seems like it could use some juice. I don't mind. I think Rodriguez is definitely a bottom six type of a player. We saw him on the top line with Crosby for a little bit due to injuries at the start of the year, but I like Evan Rodriguez in limited samples, so I don't think that would be any kind of a downgrade there if you toss him in. And of course, now we're seeing some players start to come back from injuries too. So now Mike Sullivan has some decisions to make. I'm sure he's grateful to make them, even though it might not be the easiest conversation to sit a guy down. But that kind of pressure is good pressure for a team, and sometimes you can get complacent, even if you're not even not even if you're not trying to be, even if you're trying to stay cognizant of the fact that you have to keep producing, or you might drop out of favor. But it's just human nature when you're not having that direct pressure, that that threat that you might be replaced. I hate to put it that bluntly, but that's how it goes, and that's how humans operate sometimes. So I don't see a drawback to Rodriguez getting back in the lineup, hopefully at some point in the near future. Let's see if there's anything else here. Yeah, I wanted to remind folks that you can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Let's check out YouTube as well. We have some new commenters. Deb Johnston. There was a mention of a James Neal effect here for Jared McCann. I don't want to go that far quite yet, but McCann sure can shoot the puck, and that's what he and James Neal have in common. And it does seem like, to me, Hunter at least, that Malkin does better with a quote-unquote gunner, a guy who's going to pump the puck on net. He played well with Peter Sikora back in the day, noted sniper for a long time in this league. Ruslan Fedotenko wasn't afraid to put the puck on net going way back as well. So I think there is some evidence to that. You don't want guys who just want to play patty cake with the puck with Malkin. You want guys who are going to be more direct, and perhaps that leads to a better fit for McCann. It's one game, obviously, and that was a 2-on-1. You better shoot the puck in that situation. But I think it's worth monitoring going forward. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's why he plays so well with Russ. Russ fires a lot of pucks on net. He's not like that simple playmaking player. He was their leading goal scorer last year, of course. He had 27 goals, point per game player. He's on another heater this year. He works best with those players. And McCann, to his credit, I think one of the best parts about his game, fires a lot of pucks on net. And yeah, if he would have passed that back to Malkin, I think everyone on Penguins Twitter would have exploded. Honestly, everyone that would have been watching the game, to be honest, would have exploded because he had a wide open look there. But yeah, I see a lot of potential with that line overall. I know it's only one game, small sample size, but you said 60% of the shots, expected goals basically for tonight. And that's against the Islanders. That's one of the stingiest defensive teams in the league. So if they can do that again tomorrow and potentially moving forward against the Flyers next week, remember they have 3 games against them coming up. They might have something here. They can roll out 3 good lines right now, I think. I know the Crosby line's struggling a little bit. Ashton Reese was reunited with Blueger and Tanev. Thank God. They were caved in pretty bad in the last game. And then, I wanted to talk on your Evan Rodriguez point too. Yeah, he deserves a spot on that 4th line just because there's no one on the 4th line right now that I trust. They send Drew O'Connor down to the taxi squad. That I saw that coming, to be honest. He's not NHL ready, I don't think, right now. But going back to McCann, the biggest thing with him is, can he stay healthy? He always gets into these grooves where he's scoring a bunch, and then it kind of goes away, and then he gets hurt. So we'll see if he can get one of these these big scoring. What's the word I'm looking for? Just scoring sprees here. Like he did a couple years ago when he came over from Florida, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Before the game, we had some interesting news, Hunter, that I also want to get your comments on. Ron Hextall, the Penguins GM, made a hire Chris Pryor as the director of player personnel. That was expected, I think, when Hextall was hired here in Pittsburgh, but Chris Pryor ran the drafts in Philadelphia when Hextall was there. So it seems like a natural fit, and I think that's a positive thing because Ron Hextall drafted pretty darn well when he was with Philadelphia. You see some of the young talent they have that has blossomed at the NHL level. Not saying the Flyers are a favorite in this division or anything right now, or even better than the Penguins right now, but we can all agree that Hextall dug them out of what was looking like a pretty stale situation. And a lot of that was due to the draft, and Chris Pryor had a great deal of input on that. So for me, that's a positive. I think it's hard to say otherwise based on that track record. So some early upheaval here in the tenure of Hextall and Brian Burke. First move they make is not a trade or anything like that, player related, but actually bringing someone on board for the front office. And as we know, the front office was pretty gutted when Jim Rutherford resigned last month too. So they can probably afford to add a couple more brains into that think tank, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I thought this was a solid hire. I did read, I saw from Charlie O'Connor on The Athletic, a couple other Flyers fans who, I've talked to, he was his right-hand man there. He was responsible for a lot of the Flyers players that they drafted. As you said, they drafted Carter Hart, Ivan Provorov, Travis Konechny, Oscar Lindblom, Joel Farabee, I think, was drafted under their watch. The guy obviously understands talent. Those are good players. A couple of them are, I think, elite players in this league. And if the Penguins can restock their pipeline with players like that moving forward towards the end of the Crosby-Malkin era, they're going to be set up a while. And it's going to be the difference, Matt, between a rebuild that lasts maybe 4 to 5 years or a rebuild that lasts maybe 10 years, like the Buffalo Sabres are right now, because they can't get anything going right with their talent evaluators, even though they have freaking Jack Eichel on the team. So, I like the hire. I did see Derek Clancy they parted ways with him. That's not surprising. He basically took his position. They're keeping Sam Ventura on. That's also important too.
Yes,
I do not want to see them part ways with him. He needs to stay there. I was listening to that press conference. He said he wants to really, I think, work with Patrick Allvin. That made me happy. I know he hasn't worked a lot with him, but he sees him as someone who I think is going to rise, I think, slowly among the ranks here. It wouldn't surprise me if he's a GM one day, but I'm excited to see the direction that both of these guys take the team in. And then, Matt, I'm sure you saw this morning too, that article that came out on The Athletic with the Rutherford stuff. I guess I wanted to ask you about that too. That was, the reasoning behind behind it. Yeah, the reasoning behind it was just, I read it. I closed my Mac for the day before I said something stupid, but it was just, I don't know what to say. I wasn't as upset before I read it. After I read it, though, I got really upset, I think is the best way to say it.
I'm just thrilled that Jim Rutherford is in great spirits right now. I mean, I was really concerned about the guy. My God, come on, man. It's access journalism at its worst, as far as I'm concerned. And I think Pierre LeBrun is a good writer and a good reporter, but I don't understand giving Rutherford a platform for what? Just to get his name back out there, to give him some free PR? It's ridiculous. Maybe Jim could hire somebody to start a website for him or something. It's just I didn't want to reward that sort of approach to journalism or reporting. So maybe you can fill me in on some of the low lights there. I'm not sure there were any highlights in that one. So that actually that did bother me, and I don't want to. Because I know some people probably clicked on that and said they liked Jim Rutherford when he was here. And I've given Jim some credit in recent shows right after the recent games in which guys like Matheson have played well, Cody Ceci looking like maybe 2 pretty good signings there. I guess we'll see. But the way he went out and just as quick now, putting out feelers and saying, hey, I'm ready to work again. All right, enough's enough on that.
Yeah,
one.
that was
basically long and the short on how I feel on that story.
Yeah, that was a joke to hear. I think there's 3 things that are true in the situation. I think he was the main architect behind those 2 cup teams outside the core, of course. They don't win obviously with the core, but with the moves that he made to bring in those pieces. Number 2, the last 3 years were probably the best time to move on. I think a lot of people in the fan base were sick of it, myself included. It kind of started and ended with the Ryan Reeves trade. He didn't recover after that, just made moves for the sake of making moves. And then number 3, he quit on the team. 100% did. And now, he said he was going to take some time to think about his future. Even in the article, what really got me mad, I know you didn't read it, he's like, yeah, I even recommended Ron Hextall to be the GM after I leave. I was like, what? Like that. I was really confused when I read that, just because he never knew when he was going to step down, but he still recommended Ron Hextall to be the GM someday. So it was just like, Okay, yeah. I mean, but you said access journalism at its finest. I guess what's another word? Is carrying the water a good term for it too? I,
Yeah,
I, I see a
that's
lot
appropriate.
that's thrown around too. I just, there's not enough people I think digging in as to like, what was like the full on disagreement. I would love to know like what the full disagreement was as to why he left.
Yeah, I guess I would like to know from some just purely gossipy
Yeah,
interest, but I don't need to know, and I don't really,
yeah.
if
There
we
you
never
go.
find out, then I don't care. It's fine. We can move on. I didn't care for the way that Rutherford left, and I didn't care for the way that he ran things from about I don't know the summer of 2017 on. Right
Yeah.
after they won the second Stanley Cup, we started to see a confusion. At least as far as I'm concerned, it looked like a confusion in roster construction and team construction.
Mhm.
So my feelings on the situation are well chronicled. I thought it was time to go a couple of years ago, time to move forward. So we can. I was disappointed to see that Rutherford gets a bullhorn there on the Athletic, which I'm a subscriber to the Athletic. I love a lot of what they put out there.
Oh, cool.
I guess you're not going to love everything, every part of a product, I suppose, but I just wish we would see less of that sort of thing, less of the Mike Babcock interview, also with Pierre LeBrun too.
Oh,
It, we don't need the image rehab, honestly. Let's see a little more scrutiny in these stories. You can talk to someone like that. You can talk to Tony D'Angelo, to use a different reference here. Larry Brooks in the New York Post giving him a megaphone, and but there was no real pushback there. There was no alternate perspective. It was just, hey, this is what this guy had to say. And I suppose this being the internet age, you can post something like that and then come back with a rebuttal later. But I'd like to see it in the same piece as just a consumer and as someone who has done the job, not as prolifically as a Pierre LeBrun or a Larry Brooks, obviously. But I understand the challenges of the job. I understand that you build relationships and you think that I'm sure that story with Rutherford got plenty of clicks too. So maybe that's the right thing to do. But I just don't like it. That's how I feel.
yeah. It's just those kind of pieces are just, yeah, I don't care for them either. I want to focus usually on the present. I had to
Yeah.
bring that up just to get your thoughts on it. But just moving forward, Matt, they have this team again tomorrow. Like I said, I thought the game was on Monday. They played them at 5 p.m. tomorrow, so an earlier start. The team's going to be gassed. I expect Casey DeSmith to go tomorrow, and then 3 games against the Flyers. I mean, these next 4 games are. They continue to get tougher and tougher and tougher. But the best part is still have 8 games against the Sabres left. That team is terrible. They still have 8 against the Devils. I know at any given night, trust me, the Penguins have played down to garbage competition for years. They always have those kind of stinker games. But there's 32 points up for grabs against those two teams. If you can take 25, 24, higher than 24, I think is my thing. 24, 25, 26 or higher. That's easily a playoff team. You see teams like the Capitals beating the Sabres and the Devils. They're taking care of business. Those are sellers. They're not good. And they have games later this month, next month, excuse me, against those two teams. They just have to get through this stretch. They'll have 2 games against the Islanders, 2 against the Capitals, and 3 against the Flyers after next week. So they just, I know the games get tougher and tougher, but the schedule, it lightens up a little bit as the Sabres and the Devils games come. Excuse me, I can't keep up.
Yeah, that is going to be quite the opportunity for the Penguins. And I think they're catching the Flyers at a pretty decent time. I know they've won, 6 out of 10. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10 as I look at it here. And they've had some players out due to the COVID regulations. So there are some caveats. But the Flyers have been outshot in every game. As much as the Penguins have been a little bit smoke and mirrors at times, or a lot smoke and mirrors perhaps at certain points of this season, maybe more so before the little COVID break they had at the start of this month than after. They've been playing better in the last 9 games. I think it's pretty indisputable there. But the Flyers have been getting by on, chicken wire and duct tape in a lot of ways. So perhaps the Penguins can catch them. And the Penguins have played well at home, whatever that's worth. I don't know if it means that much outside of being your comfort zone and staying in your own house. But you have 3 against the Flyers coming up, and 2 against the Rangers. So a 5-game homestand after this final game against the Islanders of the month. And the Penguins have beaten the Islanders 4 out of 5 times. They have beaten the Capitals, 4 out of 6 times.
Yep.
So they're taking care of these teams right with them. And you said it, the challenge will be to maintain focus once the schedule flips over and you start to see more of the dregs of the Eastern Division. And also keep in mind, it's a division that doesn't really have a true bottom dweller by itself. Rangers, Devils, and Sabres are all within a couple of points of each other. And they're not, none of them are really out of the playoff race at this moment, even though it's unlikely that we'll see any of those bottom three make it. So, just the usual speed bumps that are thrown out there, the usual, right this minute, let's not count those points before they are earned. But there's no doubt you can't ignore the fact that the schedule is a little bit front heavy for the Pens. So they can plug through this stretch and stay within shouting distance of first place and stay in a playoff position. It looks like they're going to be positioned pretty well. So tomorrow's game against the Isles, you got Casey DeSmith, I would assume, with this first back-to-back of the season the Penguins are experiencing. He hasn't played in 7 games, so that'll be one thing to keep an eye on. How sharp is he at the open of tomorrow's 5 o'clock face-off? And then you can head home and for the Penguins, get set for 3 in a row against the Flyers. So, all things being equal here, Hunter, they played 10 games before. They had a couple postponed. They played 9 since. It'll be 10 after tomorrow. I think they're in better position now than they were a month ago. I'll put it that way. And I think that's with all the upheaval, with Rutherford leaving, with the injuries they've experienced, I think that's pretty good, even though we can agree they have another level they can get to.
Yeah, I think I'm more optimistic right now than I was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. They won 6 of 8. I know obviously tonight was not their best game. They probably played one good period and an overtime to win the game. And they were also bailed out, of course, by Varlamov and stuff. But, they're winning these games. That's the most important thing, especially against a team like the Islanders, who they're fighting for their lives to get in the playoffs. It's a 5-team race in this division. The other 3 teams are not going to get it, especially the Sabres and the Devils. The Rangers, they're kind of there, but they're kind of not. Artemi Panarin, of course, had to take a leave of absence due to that whole story that we're not going to get into. But I've always seen it as a 5-team race with a really good team going to miss out. And I still don't know what team that is. But they're still getting by. They're beating teams like the Capitals and the Islanders. I think now overall against those 2 teams, they're 8-3 against them. And that's pretty big, I think, with only 5 games remaining against those 2 teams for the remainder of the season. But if they can, like you said, they can just get by this next week of games. I think there's a YouTube comment here from someone. They have 12 of 16 games apparently at home in March. That's huge. With how good this team has been at home this year, there's a big chance there to bank a lot of points. And like you said, if things go their way tomorrow, this team's a game out of first place. I mean, a game out of first place, a point out of first place. I mean, where do we think that was going to be just a couple weeks ago? But they're in the thick of the playoff race right now. I think the big thing for tomorrow is, they have to win that game in regulation. You can't keep having these 3-point games. You're screwing yourself with the standings at the end of the season.
The Penguins keep creeping up the standings. They give one away to the Islanders, 1 point, but they get 2. And also to your point about the schedule here, 12 of 16 at home at PPG Paints in March, but then they start April with, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of their first 9 in April are away. So it'll turn back. But they're looking like they're in a good position to try to take advantage here. And like I said, just a half tick up the standings, tied with the Flyers right now for 4th. A win in regulation against the Islanders gets them ahead of the Isles in the standings, and the Penguins also have a game in hand on New York too. And don't look now, but the Bruins are fading. They've dropped a couple in a row. They've given up a ton of goals suddenly. I know it's a strong division, but it's also there for the taking. That's where we are right now as we approach game number 20, which will be tomorrow night. No Pittsburgh postgame tomorrow, unfortunately, but Dan Kingerski and I will convene for a special Monday morning after video right here on these channels. So keep an eye out for that. Hunter, thanks so much. Tell the folks where they can find your work.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodies. Obviously, my last name is right there in case there's like any somehow problem spelling it. I do the Locked On Penguins podcast every day, Monday through Friday. I do stuff for Pittsburgh Hockey Now, do some stories in between games. And that's mainly it. I have a lot of fun doing that. And I hope you guys just like what I tweet. I live tweet every Penguins game because I try to watch each game.
Well, thank you so much for joining again. Always good to get your perspective. And like I said, we have some Pittsburgh Hockey Now synergy going on here. So another Saturday night special with Hunter Hodies on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I'm Matt Gajtka. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. I see Walt Flanagan has rejoined the chat. Good to see him. Some thoughts on The Athletic, which I mostly echo there. In a lot of ways, it's been a blessing, but also in some ways a negative in the sports journalism community. I will leave it at that. We'll talk to you next time for another edition of Pittsburgh Postgame. And like I said, look for another video on Monday morning as we reset the week. Talk to you then.